Welcome to the Coworking Values Podcast. I'm Emily Breeder. If you're a community manager struggling with reaching your audience, our latest offering is designed for you. In this 3-month cohort, we will help you build your community, learn practical strategies, and stay motivated with personalized guidance. Join us to transform your workflow and strengthen your community management skills. Look in the description of this podcast for more information on how to sign up.
Hello, folks, and we are back for another Co-working Values podcast. And in our studio today, we have Zoe Ellis-Moore. What are you known for, Zoe? And what would you like to be known for in our universe?
Wow. So for me, it's all just about quality of life, and actually placemaking is my passion. And that's why the company that I sort of founded is called Spaces to Places, because it's how you turn spaces, empty, soulless, into places with people, purpose. So that's really the transition. I'm like going, how do we make a greater place to live, work? That's what it's all about for me. And so that's what I want to be known for.
What do you think you're known for now?
So I have focused purely in the flex office sector for the last 5 years. And my, whole sort of commercial property 20 years experience has been a broad range of sectors from retail and hotels. So in transition much more into offices side now. So primarily what I'm known for now is the flex office sector, and with data and marketing on that side, especially in the UK.
That's very accurate. I feel like you're incredibly organised over there at Spaces to Places. I'm a little bit envious of the clarity and the information you managed to pull out on the. And I think so. What I was dying to ask you, because somewhere either in the report or something you put out around the report we're going to talk about today is that terminology confusion. So if someone had to pin you down and go, what's the difference between co-working and flex? We kind of know, but people outside our little bubble, how would you explain it to them?
And I think it does depend on what country you're in. There's so many different nuances. And so much more co-working is the communal space and much more orientated to the one end of the spectrum to be much more individuals. And then the flex market is much more the hybrid model between, you've got the other end of the spectrum that's very much massive corporates on traditional office leases, the leasing side of the market. And flex is getting the best of both worlds, to be quite honest, that you've got that wonderful community and that co-working side where you can meet others and you're getting that service and space as a service, but you're also getting it much more that professional end of the market as well, and you're getting great spaces and everything else. So that I think that's the whole problem with this industry. There's a spectrum, from one end to the others. We're now seeing other segments emerge like managed space as well. But for me, flex is more a business. The contract terms is a maximum of sort of 3 years that they're signing up for. And when I started in commercial property 20 years ago, the average lease length was like 20 years. It's gone down to 7 now, and it's constantly going down. We're seeing much more to space as a service on that spectrum. But pure definition of flex for me is anything that you're signing up for a workspace and the contract is under 3 years. It's a sort of definition. But co-working is more to the end of pay-as-you-go in some ways.
It is, yeah. I know. Actually, no one's ever described it like that, but it is pay as you go. It's like a T-Mobile pay as you go. I'm out of minutes. So the London Flex Brand Index. I should know this before I got here. This is the first time you've done this, yeah?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So just the bit I want to sort of kick off with to drive the whole thing is just those 4 segments you had in the report, and we're going to put a link in the show notes, folks, so you can go to the show notes and get the report. But that confusion between terminology and the way you've laid it out, I don't think the general public are going to start using those terms, but in the industry, it kind of, I felt like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like someone's defined it for me.
Yeah, the data like Hilary and the team were constantly looking at data, and that was ones where we had to put some categories around data to be able to compare similar with the other similar providers. Hence, we removed managed space from this report. We have got lots of data on managed space, but there's even more confusion with that sector. And just with the data on that side. So that's why we were like going, actually, let's start with the flex office operators. And actually, for us, the starting point was going, there's 60 brands in London with over 4 locations, and really cutting it down, looking at that 686 locations. Then we could start to analyse them. That was our big point, and going, actually, 10 of those are much more brand lords. They're actual landlords running their own brands. So it was a way, categorisation for us was a way of cutting up the industry and really trying to forensically analyse it a bit more. And we started with London, and we're then going to do the UK next year and go further. But it was very much, we're like, let's start with some of the most complex markets and most mature, London, and really nail this down first with our methodology before we can go out further. So that was the reasoning and rationale behind it.
Is with this brand thing, is because there's this conversation going on about, like, which I love and I thoroughly endorse, because I spent a lot of my life in hospitality and caterings, and I just always felt like when I was walking around a co-working space and running it, that it felt like the same feeling I got being on the floor of a restaurant. But there's this whole casual dining sector in hospitality. So there's like the Harvesters and the Mitchell, what are they called? The Bernie Inns and Miller and Carter. So there's 60 brands in London. I'm not going to ask you to like call them out, but like some of them have to be, a Terence Conran restaurant, and some of them have to be a kebab shop. And how in your work do you resolute that? Because if someone's like, I'm going to own the Ryanair part of the market, they're going to do really well. But
so in the report, we can go further categorization, but we did just put mainstream, niche if they are serving like the tech sector, particularly more neighbourhood. Then we've got premium, and we have value. So that was the way that we have just for this report sort of categorized them. So that was our starting point at the moment, but I think we can go on to lots of subsectors, but that was the area we went into.
How do you think it will play out over time? Because there's one thing of owning a niche like Ryanair, is a good example. And then there's like ending up in that niche I wanted to be, the Intercontinental Hotel in Mayfair, but now I'm kind of a Best Western.
What we see with brands just generally and any flex providers is you go on a journey, I think, from the first location, and then you start to scale to say 5, and then you get to 25. You go through different stages of growth as well, and working out what is right for your target market. And I think as we see with these brands that have grown now, they've really fine-tuned what they're about and what particular market segment they're serving. And I always go back to, there's a huge difference between Regus with Spaces, IWG with Spaces and IWG with Regus. They're 2 completely different brands, tackling 2 different parts of the market. Regus is much more sort of Ryanair, where you add on lots of costs as well. So if you want coffee, even you buy your coffee card. If you want parking, you pay all those extras. Spaces, you've got much more communal space, you've got more staffing, you're paying 41% higher sort of cost than a Regus as well. They're more modern buildings, so they have actually segregated those 2 different brands to completely 2 different audiences. So this is the nuance that we're seeing now. It's moving much more to like the hotels, like you say, and other industries as well, like restaurants.
Because I'm a die-hard organic co-working person, I was of course delighted to see the shockingly low net promoter score. But can you get past my delight of that and be a bit more academic? Like, what is going on there, in your opinion?
So I think just to sort of highlight that, one of the elements that we did bring up, because WeWork and Regus scored really well in some ways and highly with their brand score that we provided in the index, but we didn't have Net Promoter Score for the whole market, so we couldn't have measure fairly across Net Promoter Score. And the big one was Regus scoring minus 82 with their Net Promoter Score, and it was 89% of those people were detractors. So people saying that have used Regus saying negative things about Regus. And you even see that there's a website, I think, I can't remember what the domain name, it's like I hate Regus. Lots of people are very opinionated about Regus in some ways. And we've known that. And I think that's just that customer frustration and friction points. When you read their sort of feeds on social media, people do and are very vocal about them. But one of the things with brand that I find really go back to the principles is a strong brand creates emotional connection, and people know what that brand stands for. And it's a simple idea, simply expressed. Like if you say McDonald's, some people love McDonald's, some people absolutely hate McDonald's. They really divide as a Marmite. And I think Regus is that one as well. So that's why they're also a strong brand. But, people have implicit sort of emotions and opinions around those sort of brands. So that's why I see they are a strong brand, and they provoke different reactions there on total ends of the spectrum. But I think Regus, it's been more people sign up and then they get frustrated. We do see lots of people go into Regus, work out this flexible office industry, and then go on to other providers. That's what we see time and time again. And the amount of client work that I've seen this happen, that they go, actually, we're located next to a Regus. We've done really well because we provide a similar price point or a lower or higher price point, but we're offering better customer service. And we've managed, to reap the benefits of being next to a Regus. So I think that's how we can use it in the industry as a real positive, that people sometimes start with a Regus and then move on once they get to understand the industry more.
I've never thought of that, but I'm not surprised you say that. And one of my frustrations is places where I see I'm actually delighted you said that, because I've seen many really good local co-working spaces open up that are, owner run, and a Regus comes in and just does this thing, which I think is so shitty. They kind of look at, it's like Zoe and Bernie's co-working space, and they will take the name of the co-working space. And so when people search that, they'll buy that link. I don't know, like everyone does it in SEO, but I think it's a really cruel thing to do. And then I always feel, I don't know whether it's unintentionally or like a deliberate market move, they kind of missell what's going on. Like everything you need in one building. But with Ryanair, long ago, must have taken over 500 Ryanair flights, but I just accepted that I am going to get what I pay for, and I don't pay very much, and I can carry a bag on, and I'm never going to eat a cheese and a ham sandwich on a Ryanair flight, so I'm fine. It's like accepting your position.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the sector is diversity, all the different sort of providers. And this report just highlights, like, there's 60 in London, really established with 4 or more locations. And that's what's, this competitive market, that's what keeps it going. We're increasing, for me, it's like for this report, I'm sort of putting some figures behind it. We're increasing standards as well. I see that as a good thing. And the evolution of the whole sector maturing. So I feel like we're moving forward. That's what's, in any market, there's different providers at all different levels as well. But we have, and in the report, we highlighted this sort of tier 1 of the 2 global providers there, that sometimes they've been synonymous with the industry. But what I'm delighted about is this sort of tier 2, some phenomenal providers. We're seeing the cream of the crop rising to the top. And that's what excites me all the time. Every time I go into different places, there are amazing experiences, and I just want more people to know about these amazing workspace providers in the market.
I always, all the people in that tier 2 thing, and folks go and download the report. If you'd gone to those people, the people that started those and own them now, and showed them like where they would be in 2017, their heads would have fallen off. And that was one of my questions actually, is do you think those people, or not those people, those brands and those companies and those styles of things, could they have been doing what they do now in 2015? Is it just the way the market and the industry and the way we work has matured, or like is it timing?
Well, I go back to actually unit management. They're celebrating 50 years, and and they've slowly just organically grown one building at a time. But that was 50 years ago. They're really the first in the market, and they've just kept with what they were doing, and very much grown that way. And then we see newer brand. We're constantly tracking newer brands coming into the market, and of course, COVID has really escalated everything because now people don't need to have an office. You've not got to create that want. You've got to give something more now. So we've seen this, why the industry has, grown and expanded with all these different brands. But it goes back to, for me, all the basic principles where you look, all these brands, they were serving a market need at the end of the day. And that's what it always goes back to, and keeping relevant now. I do see that, I must mention sort of we call them tier 3, providers with 3 or less locations. There's some phenomenal ones there with great brands. You've got Mission Works, the Fisheries. They've got one location, but they're amazing, and they are serving their local market. But unfortunately, keeping track of all those ones we excluded from the research. But there is also phenomenal brands, with just one location as well. So I think that's important to say. And so even just setting up somebody new into the market with one location, I think that's exciting that they've really created a great brand locally and a fan base as well. And what always connects for me is the great providers in this market. They're having to balance. There's a lot, I think, for me. I do appreciate, it is a hard job, to be quite honest. At the end of the day, there's so many sort of pain points. People are working so hard in this industry. They're not coming up for air. They're doing multiple roles. There's success pressures, trying to raise capital. There's constant dilemmas between sort of the community and the commercials as well. There's so much going on. People are working really hard to generally offer what the local market wants and really respond to that. And that's the great thing of just entrepreneurship as well, and what people are doing and bringing others together. So you can do it, but I just recognise the hard work that everybody in this industry just puts into being able to create amazing experiences for places for people to work.
That's why I think it's like being in a restaurant. Like the graft of a co-working space owner is equivalent to someone who's opened a restaurant. I always feel that energy and grind. With Mission Works, that kind of dominates locally. What you touched on it a little bit there, but what do you think they did in their area that made them do so well?
With any of the brands that we're looking, I think this is the one that is so multidisciplined. It isn't one factor. I think it's just consistency. For me, with anything, with branding, with providing a service, it's being consistent the whole time. That's what you've got to keep on doing, the same thing again and again to the same standards. That's my key takeout of any of these brands, and especially a few that made it sort of right into the top 10. It's consistency. It isn't, they're not overnight successes. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what people expect and stuff. Nobody in this market is an overnight success. They've put in consistently hard work across all the different areas, from the in-house experience there. They've also, starting at the beginning, they've picked a really good property. They've worked out what amenities are in there. They've worked out that sort of what it looks like and feels like with, the basics of the first level property. They've then worked out what that service provision is, all the systems and the tech and the processes. They've brought the right staffing in. They've then created the right interactions between the people using the space, and then they've created sort of partnerships and placemaking wider, and then they've packaged it all up. I would say that's the other thing, that then they've worked out the right sort of price point, they've worked out the communication channels, and then you get sort of the performance and the profitability, but you've got to keep going, and this whole cycle keeps on going. So they're working across so many multidisciplined areas, but they're consistently doing it and keep on trying to improve.
Can you talk, like leading into that, can you talk a bit about the amenity, I'm trying to read it on the screen here. Amenity rich reigns super. God dear, I'm never going to get that out. But amenity rich reigns supreme, because I just think sometimes people are like buying. You should come. What really made me change my opinion on this is in 2020 when lockdown happened, there were places. I was in Maynard Studios in Mireland at the time, and there were places that were very connected with their members and the owner and all this kind of stuff. And all across the board, I saw places where people kept on paying their membership or their dues or whatever you want to call it, because they wanted to keep the community going. And there were other, which I would argue were amenity rich, like yoga studios and gyms and, bars and beer on tap, where they got into an argument over the contract. And it's like people have brought the facilities, not the community. And I've never quite managed to resolve it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. What we did see in the report, definitely highlighting what you're saying there, is that flight to functionality, because we took a wider perspective of London and we did everything in London boroughs, so really inside the M25. We did see, like Maynard Studios, like you say, really great experiences, flight to functionality. They've been workspaces, same, Wimtech and different other ones, providers, I would say, definitely that trend with the flight to functionality, that's what people want. They're doing, the basics there really well, offering a great price, and also communities there. Whereas Central London and all the big sort of corporate global sort of property brokers have put out reports about flight to quality. Of course, they're exceeding the highest, rates ever achieved and stuff for the desks and things. So that end of the market is much more flight. Yeah, they sort of say the flight to quality, it's very much got to be A-grade stock and everything. So we've got that spectrum again in the market, but that is Central London because the property price is much higher. There is that flight to quality, but definitely I do see people just want functionality as well. So that does come across totally. I think it just depends. If we cut this report up just into the city and the West End, we would get a different perspective. But with this report, it was quite a lot coming out to functionality.
And I'm sure you have, but just like, it feels to me that the zone in London, so folks, if in London there's like travel card zones, so we call it zone 1, zone 6. So zone 6 is the outer zones. And it seemed like in zone 6, 5 and 4, those local authorities in COVID like woke up and went, oh my goodness, we could just like keep everyone in our neighborhoods. And what have you seen about that over the last couple of years? I don't think some places would have even had a chance before COVID opening in a zone 6.
It's also regional cities we've seen coming really strong to play, and this quality of life as well. So we've seen that, and then these sort of neighbourhoods really evolving, and with the neighbourhoods sort of spaces, really seeing that mixed use where you're blending it with a lifestyle. I would say that you can. I think the Market Peckham is a great example where you've got restaurants in this building, you've got a ground floor where you've got more of a gym, the space that's used for everything, baby classes, everything as well. And then you've got workspace as well, you've got a cafe and stuff. We're seeing this mixed use much more in buildings and neighbourhood sort of destination locations as well, really popping up. That's where I think it's much more those neighbourhoods about lifestyle. That's what I do see. And then with regional cities really coming up where people coming back to the office and bringing life back into some of these town centres as well. That's really great to see. So I think there's a few different things. And of course, now we've seen people are coming back to London and working, of course, but they're working different patterns now. We're seeing evolution, I would say, into much more the lifestyle around what lifestyle do you want to work with? Do you want to work for a company that brings you in 5 days a week like Amazon, or do you want to go for a company that's all fully remote or somewhere in between? People are choosing based on what lifestyle they want to lead, and hence that links with what workspace and where they work.
So with that, and you can directly contradict me here, I think as a sector, we need to do way more education to the general public on what a neighborhood, flexible workspace, co-working space needs. Because I just, even at this stage of the game, I just don't think people understand that these places that you and I know really well are available, or they're allowed in there in air quotes. And like, what do you think about that as an industry, and what we should be doing?
So I know with Arc Club, and they did say that they don't promote themselves as a workspace because they are much more, and that wasn't what people were looking for foremost with their marketing. That was interesting that they've really picked up on that point. There's so much variety. My big one is always to people to just go out there and see these workspaces. I think that's one for the industry, trying to get people over the threshold and experience more than just one day or something, these places for a month and see the benefits there. That's always my biggest recommendations, people, is go and work in these places and work out what you need and what's right for you, because it's still this lack of education is the whole issue that we're up against. And the more we join as an industry, educating people is the big one.
Because like all the time I've been around in co-working, I've always, whether it's been like in the center of, I used to run a co-working space in Euston, and then there's neighborhood places I've been part of. I always think there's 150 seats in this co-working space, and there must be like at least 1,000 people who would put their bum in this chair if they knew about it. And there's this, they kind of miss each other in the night, the people that need somewhere to work and the people trying to offer their desks. And it's frustrating.
And I think it is this, loneliest pandemic. I think that's where I do see the big need in serving the whole of the community as well. But we're making strides forward. I think that's the one that I think we're all singing from the same hymn sheet and building it up together. I think that's the other one that now I do have conversations, and it's so much more refreshing that people go, oh, yes, I've been to that place. So, just locally talk to people, and they've got greater awareness there. And
I'm delighted about that too.
Yeah, I think the energy of this sector, that's what I get excited about it every day, that people new coming into the market, people that have, 50 years been in the market, still that passion is there.
And that, when I started seeing people like Art Club and Good Space and Patch and Oru start talking about neighborhood space, I think that's exactly what we should be calling these things. I mean, I don't mean you should go and change your flexible workspace terminology, but the feeling that someone's saying it's a neighborhood space feels so. Do you know Mr. Rogers? Mr. Rogers ran a very long TV show in the United States, and he talked about the neighborhood. I'm going to put a link in the show notes, folks.
Wow, yeah, okay.
He is Mr. Neighborhood. So Zoe, where can we find you online? We can put links in all the show notes, but shout out here so people who are running or washing up, know where to get you.
So LinkedIn's the best place. We can put a link in below. So very much Zoe Ellis-Moore, quite easy to find with a name like that. Also with Spaces to Places, and you can just type in the London Flex Brand Index. You can find the report that way as well. So hopefully easy to find. But I would say just search my name, Zoe Ellis-Moore, and then contact via LinkedIn. That's probably my preferred sort of channel that I'm on.
And gee, Zoe, are you going to any conferences in the next few months?
Oh, yes, I'll be GC London conference. That's not long. And then also Co-working Europe. So really looking forward to the end of the year with so many great conferences.
Brilliant. And thanks again for your introduction to 360 Workplace in London, which was, this was in 2024, because that whole session was brilliant. It moved our whole inclusion, diversity and accessibility conversation on like 100 miles. So thank you for that.
Oh, yes. And I was so gutted to miss that, but hopefully we'll be at the next one as well, of course, if we're looking at your events lineup.
that will be the Workspace Design Show in 2025. So link in the show notes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your time and attention today. Go to the link in the show notes and download the report, whatever segment of your market in. There's like gold star information there. And thank you for your time today, Zoe.
Thank you. I'm waving goodbye. So thanks very much, everybody. Bye.